All right, welcome everybody to the Movie Guide podcast. I guess is what we're going with.
Episode 1.
Episode 1. Thanks for listening, first of all. I am Jordan.
I'm Greg.
You are Greg. I guess first we should talk a little bit about how this whole thing got started. I write on my own movie blog, doing reviews and such, jordansmovieguide.com, if you want to check that out. And it was your idea, really, to start the podcast, I believe.
Yeah, I have my own audio equipment that's been sitting gathering dust, and we have lots of wonderful conversations about movies on our own, so we figured we might as well record them.
Usually involving a drink of some kind.
An alcoholic beverage to lubricate things.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess we just decided to record one of our conversations, so that's how this whole thing really got started. So
And here we go.
First, we're going to start off talking a little bit about Everest, which we just got back from seeing. First of all, what did you think, just overall?
I'm very pleased with the movie. I found it to be a thrill ride.
Oh, yeah.
It was very well executed. It's probably my favorite bit of the whole movie. Well, how spoilery do we want to be?
This is no spoilers.
No spoilers. All right. But I will say very simply that the few action scenes in the movie were very well executed. The emotional triggers I thought hit right on the nose.
Oh yeah, those were one of my favorite parts of the movie, because most of the time movies don't get me emotionally, they don't hit me, but the character development in this one, especially between the main character and his wife, his pregnant wife, really, those emotional moments really got to me a lot more than usual.
The conversation, actually it wasn't even a conversation. There was a moment where one of the guys, it's a movie about Mount Everest, people are going to die, so there's a point where someone dies and the wife just looks upstairs. She gets the phone call and she just looks upstairs, and you know she's looking up in the direction of her children. And that struck me really powerfully.
That was actually one of the weaker emotional moments for me, was that character and his wife weren't developed enough for me to really care as much about them.
Yeah,
until
you really
the very
only had
end.
one conversation
that
sort of told you who each character was.
And that kind of felt a little bit forced, but that was I didn't have that many problems with the movie. I liked it a lot, actually, a lot more than I thought I would, and I thought that I would enjoy it, but it was very well executed. It was very intense. It was one of the most intense movies I can remember in recent memory.
And it taught me a lot about Mount Everest. So I've learned about it in school and in various forms before. Base camp, and you have different camps, and you kind of have these trips that up and down the mountain to acclimate yourself before you.
Which I didn't know, which actually confused me at the beginning of the movie, because I didn't understand what was happening.
They kind of. I think the point of that was to just sort of throw you into the movie, throw you into the experience as if you were climbing it yourself.
Right.
Or you're just there, you're just an observer, which I kind of like. I hate it when movies pander to the quote, as you know moment. We're both doctors, and as you know, this disease or whatever. Well, doctors don't talk to each other that way, and neither do climbers who are all professionals. They wouldn't be there if they didn't already know what was going on. And I thought they did a really good job of just letting you kind of figure some things out. There's a couple times where they spelled some stuff out. Like you remember when they talked about in the tent before they summoned, they talked about the different things that happened to you on the mountain.
Yes.
These people would have already known that.
Right. That is true.
But they executed it very well.
That's a good point.
The fact that you didn't notice it is exactly the way to do that. A movie has to have that, especially when it's something that's an expert genre like climbing a mountain would be. But in any case, I learned a lot about the mountain, and I liked the way that they stressed certain areas of the mountain. They kept referring to parts of the mountain by their name.
Right.
The way that,
and even though we, as the audience, didn't exactly know what they were talking about, they talked about it so much that we kind of got used to it.
You immediately, you're on board when they say, when somebody says, "Oh, I'm not even to this point yet," and they name it, you're just like, "Oh my gosh!" It strikes you as powerfully as it would if you actually were there.
The way it was filmed, and we talked about it a little bit after we saw the movie, but the way it was filmed was just incredible. It made the whole time I felt like I was there, even though I knew that they weren't actually on Mount Everest and they weren't actually climbing it. It felt like you were there the whole time, actually on the mountain itself.
Oh yeah,
which I thought was incredible.
And there's I didn't see the preview for this movie, so I don't even know if it's in the preview. But there's a storm that kicks up.
That was a big thing in the preview. So
all right. Well, they show that in a way that. A lot of movies that have a natural disaster make the disaster out to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
Twister, for example. Whenever that tornado comes around, they give it a powerful roar, and it's the enemy, and that's what they're fighting, or the perfect storm, or whatever. In this movie, the storm is an element of nature, and that's it.
Right.
They don't give it a personality. They don't treat it like something scary. And another thing that comes to mind is Armageddon, the way they treated that asteroid.
And the way it's visually presented is just the whole visuals in this movie and the whole thing are just amazing.
Oh yeah, and the storm was terrifying. I mean, once the storm was upon you, it meant something, but they didn't dwell on it in a way that you're just like, okay, come on, guys. Like some movies, they talk to the storm, or they scream at it, or you son of a whatever. Yeah. They didn't do that here.
So overall, if you had to give it a rating out of 5, what would you toss it?
Oh, out of 5, I think the only thing that would keep it a 5 out of 5 for me is that some of the relationships weren't treated as well as they could have been.
Right.
But it was a phenomenal movie. This is one of those movies that, despite you knowing the ending now, I still want to see it again.
Right.
Like, some movies get spoiled. Like The Sixth Sense, for example, is a movie that I know the ending, and I still want to watch it again. This is great for that.
I would. I'm going to be writing a review for my website here probably tomorrow. Have that up tomorrow. Just based on initial viewing, I'd probably give it about 4.5 out of 5. Just there were a couple things that just didn't. It took a little bit to get going, and I think part of that was I didn't understand what they were doing with the climbing back and forth on top of the mountain. I didn't understand that while we were watching it, and just some of the characters weren't quite developed. And also, I had trouble following who was who sometimes, which is hard
because everybody's covered up in masks.
Which is hard. I mean, there's nothing else you can really do about that, but it did make it hard to follow at times. So that kind of keeps it from being perfect for me.
The way they, with at least the main actors, the way they kind of handled that was by giving everybody a very distinct color. So Jake Gyllenhaal's character is bright blue.
But then there were so many characters that it was hard to remember which one.
Because you have to pay attention to upwards of probably at least 10 different characters.
Yeah, probably a solid 5 or 6 that are really main characters, I would say, and the others are main characters, but they're kind of outliers.
Yeah, but they're enough that, like, if they show you one character and he's masked up, he could look like somebody else.
Right.
But overall, I think they did the best job.
Yeah, they did the best job they could have. Just kind of it hurt a little bit because I couldn't always tell who was who. But
a movie like this, I think, would benefit from a second watch.
Mm-hmm. But upon initial viewing and right now, before completely writing out all my thoughts, I'd say probably a 4.5, and I'll get that review up as soon as possible so that listeners, anybody listening to this or anybody who reads my website,
yes, the sole guy who finds us by accident. Hello. All right.
Well, our main podcast tonight is going to be. We each came up with a top 5 list of movies that came out this summer, and neither of us know what the other person's list at this point.
Don't look at my computer screen.
I'm not looking at your computer screen. So we just decided to discuss the movies that came out this summer. A lot of them were really good. Some of them not so good, but
no, I think some of the movies that were meant to really hit home did not.
No,
at least not for me. Critically speaking, in terms of their box offices, I'm sure they did.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll discuss some of those and why they did and didn't hit. But I wanted to start off because there was a couple movies that came out that felt summery, but didn't. One movie in particular that came out before the summer started, but wasn't technically a summer movie because that technically runs from May to August. Was Furious 7, which I know you saw.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I recently watched it again.
Oh, I should have done that. What did you think of that film? So first of all, obviously,
I liked
Paul Walker was killed before the movie completed. And so that there was, I've heard, you have to correct, you know more of those than I probably. I've heard that his siblings.
They did, yeah.
Took over.
One brother in particular, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but one brother in particular kind of picked up. He had filmed most of his scenes. There are several action sequences and stuff I think that he hadn't filmed yet, but I mean you can.
Yeah, they can rework that so that his face isn't in it. Well, and also there's the final scene in that movie. His face you can see has been digitally put on there, but it's phenomenal.
I like how my favorite part of the movie is how they sent off Paul Walker. I mean that was just it was amazing.
They took a movie that probably was just going to be the middle movie of another 7 movies after that, just because that franchise is doing so well. Despite its obvious flaws, they pivoted really well into a send-off.
Yeah,
I'm not invested in that series at all, and I was like a little teared up.
That was a really good send-off. But before that, I mean, look, they've never been the most realistic movies in the world.
No.
But to me, a lot of them have had times in the movie where it made you believe it was possible just the way it was done. Like Fast Five, for example, they're dragging the vault through the middle of Rio or wherever they are. That's obviously not possible. You didn't. At least personally, I didn't feel like that. That's why Fast Five is my favorite one. I didn't feel like that. But these last two movies in particular have had things in them that it's like, all right, come on, that's
right.
And there was one moment in the sixth one that really not took me out of it, but I was like, all right, seriously, this is what we're going with. And that was when he flew off the tank and caught her in midair and landed on a car.
I don't recall that. I'm not as familiar with those.
But this one, upon rewatching it, the whole third act of the movie is not great in the seventh one. And there's a scene in the last chase where they literally spin cars beside each other and transfer one person out.
They pull her.
And
Okay, so the problem with a movie about racing cars is that you can only drive so fast. You can only blow up so many cars. You can only flip a car so many times before you've done it all. And I think the trouble is of how do we one up the last
right. And see, they
movie.
keep trying to do that, and I think that Fast Five is not a small movie by any means. See, but they've got smaller action pieces which I think work a little better than these mile-long runway or 20-mile-long runways and just things like in the sixth one. And in this one, Vin Diesel and Jason Statham drive cars at full speed at each other twice in the movie. And so I really liked it on first viewing. And upon second viewing, I'm a little...
Yeah, the cracks in the paint are a little more
visible.
Yeah. I've really appreciated some of the action scenes. I'm worried now that I'm remembering the wrong film because it has been a little while. I only watched it once in theaters, but correct me if I'm wrong. Don't some of the action scenes kind of poke fun at the fact that they're doing something crazy?
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
like
I appreciate.
For example, I did appreciate this. I found it really funny actually when they were in the buildings in Dubai and they sent one car.
They're like, really?
And Vin Diesel is accelerating towards the window, and Paul Walker's like, "Cars don't fly, cars don't fly." Yeah, that was funny to me, and that helped a little bit. And
because with a movie like that, where it's like one impossible thing after another, you need something to like break it up. And that's
so I would say I liked the movie overall, but upon watching it a second time, it just didn't quite work for me as well as it did in theaters. It's definitely a movie that worked well in theaters, but it was good, especially the send off for Paul Walker.
My least favorite thing about the movie, and I'm probably the only one who's going to complain about this, and it's because I actually drive tractor trailers for my job right now, and they frequently abuse the fact that there's space underneath the trailer. Number one, and it's visible to me because I drive them and I'm familiar with them, but the trailer that they drive is visibly higher than a normal trailer, and the cars that they're driving under have been quite a bit lowered, and they're small cars to begin with. But ladies and gentlemen, you cannot drive any car that I know of underneath a tractor trailer, let alone safely and frequently.
Well, let's just say if you saw something in Furious 7, don't try that at home ever.
Yeah,
ever. But the second
was it an exciting movie, Fast and Furious? Haha. Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was a fun movie to say the least, but nothing really more. That's not going to win any Oscars or anything like that.
No.
The second movie I want to talk about, which I couldn't actually find a release date for, I think it just had a couple of limited releases, which was a recommendation you had that I watched a couple days ago that we've talked about. That would be Ex Machina, which is the best science fiction movie I've seen in
Which is saying
years.
Something.
Because I'm not a science fiction fan.
Correct, yeah. This is a pretty deep dive.
This
is not like a soft science fiction movie.
No,
it deals with some serious points of view, artificial intelligence, the idea of
science
free
fiction,
will.
The science fiction doesn't do it for me. I stick to Star Wars or that's about as far as I go science fiction wise. But this one, I was fascinated the whole time. It was really intriguing, and I'm sure a lot of people haven't seen it, much less heard about it.
No, it did not get the. It was a little bit of not an independent film in the sense of
but it had that feel to it.
Yeah, but it was a limited release and a smaller audience, and I think it's a niche film anyway. What did you like about it most, and what did you dislike?
I liked that it, from the very beginning, it gripped me and never let me go. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, and I liked how I didn't have to know all this science stuff that was going on. They didn't make you have to understand it. You just could kind of watch the movie coming from someone who's simple-minded like me and not have to understand everything. I really liked that. and the acting was phenomenal. Everybody had great chemistry, and it was just
it's just a few. There's I think in total there's no more than 4 people on screen.
4 people, yeah.
Yeah, for folks who don't know, the film follows a guy who's won some sort of contest and finds himself in the home of some computer
Steve
genius.
Jobs-ish,
yeah, Steve Jobs. Who's the other guy? Microsoft. I'm playing Bill Gates. Bill Gates type, and this guy's very eccentric and he's strange, but he's introduced into this more or less artificial intelligence housed in the body of an incredibly lifelike robot. And it's about the things that unfold about that experience for him. What I liked most was, spoiler alert, fast forward ahead about 45 seconds. What I liked most about this film was the twist at the end, where this guy is trying to help the robot escape because he thinks that this thing has feelings, and it turns out no, she's manipulating him. And I even said she myself, like it's manipulating him to get out of its prison.
It's a fantastic movie, and I'd love to see a sequel to it as well, but I didn't expect it. Like, I didn't know really anything about it. I don't remember seeing a trailer or anything like that, so I came into the movie completely blank on it, which I like doing every now and then. Didn't know anything about it,
especially with a movie that has a twist in it. Like if you see a trailer for Sixth Sense, the way they make trailers today, it would ruin the movie.
Oh yeah, like Terminator's Genesis trailers gave away the twist in that movie. I don't know if you ever saw those trailers.
I've seen the trailers, but I have not seen the film. I felt like it was a mockery.
We'll talk about it.
We should get to that at some point. I'm willing to watch any film, to be honest with you.
We'll get to that. But I guess we should just kick off into our list. You can start with your number 5 if you'd like.
All right, so number 5 for me, in this what it came down to for me was which movie, because some of these were really hard to pick.
And we'll talk about our honorable mentions, ones that didn't make our list as well at the end. Because it was a hard list to make, just 5 movies over the whole summer.
Oh yeah, like I didn't even see that many this summer, and I still really struggled. So what it came down to me, what really moved one movie from, let's say, 3rd to 5th or whatever, was would I pay to rewatch it? And so the number 5 for me is Mr. Holmes. Did you see
Mr. Holmes? I didn't see,
which is too bad.
Was it in theaters ever? I don't ever remember.
Yes, it was here in Harrisonburg for I don't know how long it was, but I didn't see it opening weekend. I don't think I even saw it the second weekend. So it was here long enough for me to catch it.
Maybe it was just one of those ones that it was just behind so many other movies that I had to see that weekend and just missed it.
Yeah, but it stars Ian McKellen, and he plays an aging Mr. Holmes and I think it's in his 90s. He does a fantastic job. So I think he's in his 80s anyway, but he does a fantastic job of seeming even older than he is.
See, I've just never been into all Sherlock Holmes things to begin with. I've never really read the books, but they've never really interested me, and I didn't like the Downey Jr. movies all that much. I think I only saw the first.
The difference between Robert Downey Jr.'s films and this, I think, is light years apart. Robert Downey Jr.'s films were meant to be sort of this steampunk action movie,
right?
While being it's still a little cerebral. I appreciated the fact that his movies still try to engage you intellectually. Mm-hmm. But Mr. Holmes goes the other way, and it takes kind of a masterpiece theater angle to it, where it's a little slower, and it's ultimately about the relationship between a case that he solved or tried to solve near the end of his career, and didn't really solve it to his satisfaction, and the state where he is now, where he's basically retired, and on his the last
he's 90 years old. I would hope he's
at the end of his life, and he's taken up beekeeping. And so it's
terrible.
It's really interesting. I loved it. It made me actually more interested in bees than I ever have been in my life. Which is not to say that
better than snakes. So
yeah,
I don't like snakes very much.
Jordan here is not a big fan of snakes.
No, not at all.
Whereas I'm not a big fan of spiders. So I'll ride a snake. He can ride a spider in the ultimate death battle that we'll one day fight. So the point that I'm getting at is that this movie is comparing these 2 points of view. So you're flashing back and forth. And ultimately, it's about his relationships, and it's that kind of movie.
I'll definitely have to check it out at some point. There's just something that I didn't get around to seeing in theaters and haven't noticed it out on Redbox or anything like that. That I usually not on Netflix or anything like that yet. So I haven't.
No, yeah, it's far too early for that. It's not a very it's not an intense film. It's a thinker.
Yeah, and I'm down for those every now and then. I like my action movies, as you know, but I like thinkers every now and then, as Ex Machina proves. which got a 5 out of 5 for me. I reviewed that.
I would definitely recommend Mr. Holmes to anybody who likes sort of it's I don't even know what to call it. Like, it's not really a drama for me, but it's it's certainly not suspense, horror, action. It's none of those, but it's a fun movie about a relationship, and the relationship, in fact, that I like the most is between the Holmes character and I forget the actor's name who plays the young boy, but there's the woman who's taking care of him has a son, and the Holmes and this boy get to be really good friends, and there's a lot of interesting sort of the wisdom that Holmes is imparting upon to the kid, and the youth and vitality that the kid is able to give back to Mr. Holmes, and the fact that he's slowly losing his memory, and he's doing these little exercises to try to improve his memory, and the boy is sort of picks up on that, and without even being asked to, sort of does things to help him out.
Hey, you sold me. I mean, I've heard from multiple people that it's a good movie, so I'll definitely have to check it out at some point. It just
so that's my number 5.
My number 5, which going into the summer I assumed was going to be my number 1, and my actual number 1 you're going to absolutely hate, but we'll get to that, is Avengers Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
That one. Did it make your list?
No, not even.
No, it didn't make your list. I was disappointed by it. I still like the movie overall. It's not a bad movie by any stretch. I think I went in with too high expectations, and it let me down big time.
Yeah, I'll get to, well, I don't know, I guess since we're talking about it, I'll go into it now. Age of Ultron, I thought, tried too hard.
It did seem like that.
The jokes were too on the nose. Like, they just...
See, a lot of the humor was my favorite part. I liked some of it missed. Don't get me wrong.
Well, here's the problem with that. The movie's not about jokes.
Right, that's true.
So when the jokes are what is all that you're there for, but at the end, like, that's not...
I like that the Marvel is separating itself from the DC. DC's more dark with the Superman and stuff like that. But this, I thought, has always been a little lighter. Avengers 1 has a lot of jokes itself to it. But I like that aspect of it. I like how it's separating. I like the dark aspect of the DC films. I like that direction they're taking personally. But I like that this was a little lighter, and the jokes worked for me. But like you said, that's not what we're there for.
That's not the movie's about, And so I felt like it would have been a fantastic movie for the devoted fans. But for a casual Marvel fan like myself, it just fell short.
Yeah, it did fall a little short. It was definitely disappointing. Some of the action scenes are great. Some of them are very CGI. It's very evident. The first fight in particular.
Yeah, I throw that out. That was probably my least favorite point in the whole film. Even more so than the just completely random. Let's spend 20 minutes at my lover's house, like the gay Cupid. What's his name?
Oh, Hawkeye.
I can't stand.
I liked that scene. See, because that added something to Hawkeye that we didn't get in the first movie.
It was such a disruption of the pace of the movie.
It did.
The first hour of the film is like go 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 go.
But you needed it,
and then it just starts to come down and come down. It's like the movie was ending, and then we get this long scene where people are just fighting with each other, and then there's the exposition in the barn with Tony and. I'm blanking on his name.
Nick Fury.
Samuel Jackson. Yeah, and that exposition, and then the movie ramps back up again for the end. I don't like that kind of pacing.
I can see that.
The second or the last Iron Man film did the same thing, where they had this middle part that was really slow, where everybody's thinking and figuring stuff out.
See, personally, I just liked how they added a little bit of character to Hawkeye. Made him, at least personally, made me care about him a little more. But
again, that's for a devoted fan. That was probably gravy. They probably loved that.
So I've never read a comic. I've never touched a comic book in my whole life, so I wouldn't call myself a devoted fan. I've seen most of the Marvel movies.
Okay.
But if not all of them, I guess. But I liked that they added a little bit more character development to that particular character.
I mean, I'll give you that. So I'm not saying that was the worst
see
part
your
of the
point,
film.
though.
It was just not my favorite.
A little bit.
What I probably liked the most is the scenes with the Hulk.
Oh yeah,
that was just unadulterated action, and forget the fact that like laser beams in this movie seem to be just like a slap in the face, and everybody sort of reacts to them like nothing. But when the Hulk is fighting and he's blasting through, and Tony Stark has that. What do they call it? The Hulk Buster or whatever, that massive suit. Mm-hmm. He's in a suit already, and then he climbed into another suit. That's just unadulterated testosterone, and I loved it.
Yeah, so it has some really good scenes in it, but it was just disappointing for what I wanted it to be, especially since, we haven't even talked about James Spader's a villain yet is wasted in the movie.
James Spader, I liked the way he portrayed Ultron.
I liked it too, but I feel like the performance was wasted in a movie that just wasn't up to par.
Perhaps. I thought he was one of the better elements.
He was. That's what I'm saying. His performance was so good that it just the plot and the other things in the movie.
I'm glad we're talking about this. James Spader. When I first watched the movie, I love to like when there's someone's just voice acting. I love to sit there and be like, who is that? Who is that? Who is that? And with James Spader, I was like, I recognize that.
Yeah, it was right away.
And they did a fantastic job of just slightly camouflaging him in that electronic noise they add to his voice. But his sort of, it reminded me so much of Stargate. But there's, sort of Stargate. I don't know if you ever watched Boston Legal.
No, I've not. Okay,
he's in the Boston Legal is a show with William Shatner, and that's a non sequitur. We'll come back to that another time. Long story short, he comes in with this sort of philosophy mixed with a Saturday Night Live kind of joke feel. I don't know. I loved it. I loved his portrayal.
I'm trying to think of how to word it. His performance was great, but I just think as a villain, it could have been better overall.
What's your favorite scene with him?
I liked the scene where he's in his chair or whatever, and Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver kind of come up to him, and he's kind of giving his exposition about his plan and how.
Is that when they first run into him?
Yeah, I think that's
like in a church or something.
Yeah, it's something
which is
like that.
Supposed to be emblematic of what, I don't know. My favorite scene by far
is the very first one that we're introduced to him, and he.
No, that's good too, because he comes out
probably even better than the one.
That's actually I've forgotten about that. When he comes out and they finally destroy him, their owner strings on me, Pinocchio line. Woo, that was fun. But the for me it was when they're on the boat with Andy Serkis's character, who I can't remember what his.
Yeah.
He's the arms dealer or whatever. When he comes, this is what it is. It's when he gets pissed off and he cuts off his arm and he immediately reacts. Oh my gosh! I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because there's this mix of a human emotion going like, crap, I wasn't supposed to do that,
but
and I didn't actually mean to do that. I lost control, but at the same time, he's like a child.
Yeah,
he's a child with the brain of all of human knowledge. That was really fun for me. And that was sort of, again, it was reminding me of Ex Machina a little bit in the sense that it's an artificial intelligence finding its way.
Yeah, but overall as a movie, it was good but disappointing.
I'd give it I wouldn't give it a 2.
No.
I'd give it a 3.
My cutoff when I review movies is 3 is a good movie, and I'd give that a little over a 3. I think I don't remember what I gave it when I first reviewed it, but I think probably higher than that, probably higher than it deserves. But
it doesn't get me excited.
Right.
If someone says, "Hey, we're going to watch Age of Ultron," I'm not going to be like, "All right."
I tried to watch it again, and something came up like halfway through, and I never even went back to finish it.
Well, that's exactly literally what happened to me. I got to the middle part where the scene where Tony Stark goes to talk with Nick Fury, and I was like, I'm going to go make dinner or whatever.
I don't remember what came up, but something came up and I did something else, and I just never came back and finished it. So, but yeah, so go on to your number 4.
All right, number 4. This was a tough choice for me. This almost was number 3 for me, but Southpaw.
Southpaw didn't make my list. Made my honorable mentions.
Okay.
Didn't make my top 5.
Southpaw is...
Which is funny because normally I would be the sports movie person.
Right, and I'm not at all a sports movie, but this movie transcended that for me. Was it MMA? Is that the sport? Or no, he was boxing.
He was boxing.
He was boxing and stuff. So I follow the Joe Rogan podcast, and he's into MMA and all that sort of thing. And so I've kind of gained an appreciation for that where I didn't have one before.
Right.
And this touched on that enough for me to mix the two worlds. I love Jake Gyllenhaal. I think he's a fantastic actor. And in fact, speaking of that, his performance in Everest was great.
Yeah, it was really good. He was
understated.
I was surprised he wasn't the main character. I thought going in that he was one of the main characters, and he wasn't really. He was really very supporting.
He was a fantastic supporting role. But anyway, so his acting in this movie, you don't recognize him, man. He blends in. That's what he always does. He's ripped and huge. I listened to an interview with him, and he's so in person. He's so fun-loving and soft spoken and happy. He sounds like a little kid all the time. He's got that energy of just sort of being go with the flow. And then this role that he was in, he was intense.
But he always does it. He always delivers a performance where he just melts into the role. Yeah. This past 5 years, going back to End of Watch and Nightcrawler and Prisoners, and he's just always somebody that you forget it's him.
Yeah, he's we have different generations of the the leading men in film, and some of them are getting older. Now, Tom Cruise and
he's
Brad Pitt. They're sort of on the other end. George Clooney. They're on the other end of it.
Acting ability. Gyllenhaal's one of the best, if not the best, working today.
Yeah, I don't know how old he is. Well, actually, I think we're close to the same age, believe it or not. Relative to, say, Leonardo DiCaprio, who's another one of my favorite actors. He's in his late 30s now, isn't he?
My problem with Leonardo DiCaprio compared to Gyllenhaal is a lot of the times, even in DiCaprio's best role, I still see DiCaprio.
Yeah,
Gyllenhaal
he has
melts,
a streak.
and I see the character who played Nightcrawler. I don't remember his name. I see the guy I see the cop from End of Watch. I see those people instead of Gyllenhaal, and that's what I think separates him from somebody like DiCaprio, who, if Wolf of Wall Street, I don't like it as a movie. I'm one of the only ones. But
his character. I just recently watched The Aviator for the first time. His character in The Aviator reminded me so much of the way he played in The Wolf of Wall Street, and it's this sort of intense, go for broke kind of emotion. The movie that I think he disappears the most into is probably Django.
Django, yes, that's a good call.
The Candy, Mr. Candy, or whatever it is. He just.
And it looks like he does that in the Revenant coming up. We saw the preview before the movie night. It looks like he's trying.
The poor guy. He's trying so hard.
He is. He wants
to get that
he deserves
award.
He deserves that Oscar. I give him that. But Gyllenhaal is great. And Southpaw. Getting back to our original topic here, we got a little off, but
it's okay.
The movie itself was really good. It was just like a couple elements of it we've discussed a couple times, like the fact that the murder of his wife is never really investigated after original, and you mentioned that to me. It almost kind of ruined the movie a little bit, because I was like, oh wow, I didn't think about that originally. It was like, wow, yeah, that's a big hole.
It just happens, and then you just sort of like, oh, all right. Because it happens. If I recall, it's been a few weeks now, but isn't it his rival that ultimately, or somebody on the side of his rival that ultimately did the murder?
It was one of his rivals' entourage, I guess. And I never really understood what exactly happened there.
I loved the relationship between him and his daughter.
Yeah, I love that too. Gyllenhaal and the little girl was good actor.
Good actor. Yeah, for me, a child actor. The mark of a good child actor is can they cry? Because as an adult actor, that's hard enough.
Right.
And when a little kid, the other one that does it really well is Jaden Smith in. If you've seen. I'm blinking on it now. The Karate Kid, the newest Karate Kid.
Oh, I thought that movie was terrible.
Well, that's another. I love it, but that's another
disgrace to the original.
But there's a scene in that where Jaden Smith just lets the tears loose, and you buy it. You really buy it.
Did he play Will Smith's kid in Pursuit of Happiness? Do you know?
Yeah, he's played him a lot. He was the other movie 2000. What's the movie with? I'm blanking on his name. Neo, for heaven's sake. Who played Neo?
In The Matrix?
Yeah.
Oh, the Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves, the movie with Keanu Reeves, 2012 or whatever, or not 2012.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, whatever. The audience can go Google it. But anyway, he's been in a bunch of movies since then. But he's been his father's kid in a film at least twice that I know of. The other one was in the After Earth.
That movie is. Yeah, we don't even need to talk about that.
That was another bad one. So anyway, getting back to Southpaw, the relationship there was really good, and the little girl let the tears go, and I think that is a fantastic skill, and it shows how good an actor a kid is, and it probably says a lot about the director. Who works with the kid, or whoever is the coach.
Antoine Fuqua directed the movie, and he's fantastic. He's directed some of my favorite movies. So,
what else has he directed? That I would know anyway.
I think you've told me before you've never seen Training Day with Denzel Washington, which you've got to watch.
Maybe I have. I've seen a bunch. I've recently watched a bunch of Denzel Washington.
Well, you didn't like Olympus Has Fallen. He directed Olympus Has Fallen. I love that movie, but you didn't like it as much. He's directed a bunch.
That's a big America kind of movie. Yeah, it's too much for me.
I can't remember anything else off the top of my head, but it's more than that for sure.
So what's your number 4?
Southpaw was probably my number 7, tied for 6th, but just barely missed my list. My number 4 was Ant-Man.
Yeah, no.
Is that you didn't like it?
No, it felt so much like. Oh yeah, and here's another Marvel movie.
I had fun with it. I thought it was different than a lot of Marvel's movies. And
what I will give it is that because I kind of felt like they rolled up to the movie and they're like, maybe not a lot of people are going to see this, so here's the money. We're going to make it anyway because it's part of the larger universe. go do it right. And I think again, if you're a solid Marvel fan, you're going to know
Which
the story.
apparently
really
I am
well.
more so than you.
Apparently,
Yeah.
my little sister, for example, ate that movie up,
I
and
thought it was
she is
blast.
a devoted Marvel fan.
I love the summer. The summer movie season is probably my favorite movie season because
Of course.
I like
As opposed to the Christmas movies.
I like to go throw popcorn in my face and watch a fun movie, and that's what this movie was to me. It was fun. I've seen it a couple times and it had some great action sequences. I think I wasn't sure about it going in. I'll be completely honest. I saw the trailers and I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. And I saw it. It was like, holy crap! The way they did the action sequences was just fantastic to me. It was so fun to watch.
Well,
and the humor of the movie is great. Michael Pena might be the greatest part of the movie.
That was the humor was well done. What I didn't like was the movie felt kind of small in scale. So like a lot of the movie takes place inside of a house.
To me, it reminded me a lot of the first Iron Man movie.
Huh. I would not have made that comparison.
Because we're using smaller in scale in different terms. You're talking about more in one house, but I'm talking...
Yeah, I meant claustrophobic.
Yeah, not Avenger style. So it reminded me it was a smaller movie because, I mean, when the first Iron Man...
So you're talking like budget, number of cast.
Yeah, they didn't know. And kind of the humor was kind of the same a little bit. There's more humor in Ant-Man, obviously. Yeah. And the stories were kind of smaller and more focused on certain things. So it kind of reminded me of that a little bit, but... I just had a blast with the movie. Really enjoyed watching it.
I think if I'd gone in there without a primer,
then again, I had no expectations at all for it.
Oh, really?
Because
I'd seen the trailer a million times.
I saw the trailer.
Like, oh my gosh.
I saw the trailer a million times too, and I was like, it's just not clicking for me. And then I saw it. And
the thing I liked least is that a guy who's tiny is gonna be like all strong. I couldn't.
See, I just didn't care. I was just having so much fun.
That was the critical point for me. Is the connection between reality and the fantasy of the movie was, so they talk about having, every film gets its magic bean. It kind of like you whatever you want them. Star Trek. Okay, you've got the future United States in space. I mean, that's what it feels like. Okay, fine, you buy that, and then after that, then everything that follows has to be logically in line.
Right.
Whereas I felt like Ant-Man had a little too many. So here's this genius guy who makes a suit, and it doesn't get, the corporate machine doesn't take it over. Okay, well then, next you've got this guy who stumbles upon it. Next, he's also a thief. Next, he can control ants. Okay. Next, he can and I just kept going.
I think you're just dissolving the movie a little too much.
One after another, I was like, how many times are we gonna?
It was fun. It was a great summer movie.
You can do.
Great summer movie, in my opinion. But I mean, obviously low enough to be number 4 on my list. What are we at? Number 3 for you, I think.
All right, number 3. For me, number 3 is Jurassic World.
Really, I'm surprised it's on your list at all. It's a lot higher on my list, so we can save the discussion for.
If you want to wait, I will just say I'll say some brief things about it now.
Just tell me why exactly it's on your list, because
it's on my list at all.
Our previous discussions, I would have think that.
All right, to fill everybody in, the problem I had with it initially is that when you compare this movie to the first Jurassic, and I don't know how much you want to how much stock you want to give in comparing.
I know.
Hold on. This movie feels like a reboot to me. So there's been 3 quote unquote originals, and now you've got. Well, okay, but you have 3 that are set in sort of one universe.
Yeah.
And 3, it feels like they're going to do another 2 probably, at least.
Unfortunately, I don't know where they're going to go with the sequel. I don't know that I'm that excited about that, but that's
how could you? Yeah, how much more can you go?
That's
but anyway,
different.
the dialogue was terrible in this movie.
I won't argue, but I'll explain.
I don't want to. This movie is new enough. I won't spoil. Well, we spoiled the others. I don't know.
We haven't spoiled too much, really.
Okay, so there's a couple scenes towards the end of the movie where there, you might call it a twist, or anyway, the plot sort of suddenly changes, or the device suddenly changes, and I just can't buy that change the way they set it up.
I know what you're talking about. We've talked about it before. But
yeah, that doesn't work for me.
I really can't believe the movie's on your list at all, especially number 3.
This is what I was saying. This is what I was saying. Would I pay to rewatch it? Yeah, I would.
Yeah,
because it's Jurassic Park.
I've seen it 4 times.
It makes. Oh, jeez. I saw it once. I might have seen it twice, but it just didn't work out. This movie holds so much the credit built up by the previous film
Right.
is still there, and
Right.
I buy into it.
Well, we'll discuss it a little bit more.
And
once we get
Chris
to it.
Pratt,
Is
I'll say, is well. Okay, you want to wait? We can
yeah. We'll just wait.
All right, so that's my number 3.
My number 3 is Mission Impossible 5.
Okay, yeah. That's higher up on my list.
Is it higher up? Okay.
That's higher up. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll just save my discussion.
Well,
for
what number is your Jurassic? Oh, it's gonna be number 1.
It's high.
Okay.
It's high.
Well, then, so my number 2 is Mission Impossible.
Okay,
let's
so we
talk
can
about
talk
Mission
about
Impossible.
it now. I actually just watched it again last night, and I really enjoy it, and I really enjoy a lot of the scenes. My problem, and it's my problem with every Mission Impossible movie except the third one, and anybody who's read my review of the movie knows it, is the villain just doesn't do it for me. The villains in the Mission Impossible series, besides Philip Seymour Hoffman in the third one, are just not good.
Let's take a moment and just revel in how amazing Philip Seymour Hoffman is. I'm so sad that he died.
Yeah. I'm assuming you've seen the third Mission
Oh
Impossible.
yeah, like
And
I've seen
that's
them all.
That's the best villain.
He's great. I think I even own that movie in like
But-
a DVD, of all things. I can't.
At least it's not a VHS.
I know, geez. I think the only VHS movie I have is like Gone in 60 Seconds from Nicolas Cage.
I had tons of them when I was a kid. I think we probably got rid of them all, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, so the villain in this, I didn't like everything about him. I did like the subtle sort of like he reminded me of.
Just felt like he had no development at all.
Yeah, it
I
was
didn't
a little.
care.
It was a little
I didn't
weak.
care about him, and
The reason why I went to
he
see
was
this
just
movie
boring.
is that I just love the good guys in this film.
That's true.
Simon Pegg.
Tom Cruise might be insane, but I
He's a
love
damn good
all
actor.
of his movies. I love
He's
all
a
of them.
fun guy. I listened to an interview with him on the Nerdist, and he just comes across. I mean, he might be a nut job. He might be, part of some crazy quasi-religion, fake religion,
Cult.
whatever. But he's fascinating, and
Yeah.
he's excited about everything he does. He's always happy.
And not only is the man insane with his cult following, whatever, he is actually insane because he hung off the side of an airplane for this movie. Very few people.
I kept thinking like, okay, we get it. You're willing to do your stunts, but
I love that about it. I mean, that makes the movie
no,
that
it
much
does.
better.
It does. It adds
And
a lot.
of those motorcycle scenes he did himself too. Which
That
is
was
incredible.
probably the best part of the whole movie. The
And I
motorcycle
didn't
scenes.
really realize it the first time I watched the movie, but when I watched it again last night, that scene is just fantastic. It's amazing to watch.
When she stands up when they're racing and she stands up in the middle of the street and he immediately dumps the bike. That reminded me, and I wonder if actually it's so startling now how close this is. It reminds me of Casino Royale.
Yeah.
When he flips the car.
Yeah.
When he sees her in the street, and except the difference here is that she was put there,
And she just stood there.
In Mission Impossible, she was kind of the bad guy. But I think what's best about the Mission Impossible, at least the latest movies, is the hijinks among the.
Oh yeah, they're so
guys.
much fun. There's so much the
Well,
humor. between them.
the whole innocent, we can neither confirm nor deny at the beginning of the movie.
that
That was hilarious.
Awesome. And when they did it at the end too, I was dying.
It was well executed.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun movie. I liked it. The reason it just doesn't quite. It's still a great movie, but the villain aspect just kills me on all those movies. 4 didn't have a good villain. That's probably my favorite one. I don't even remember the villains from 1 and 2. 2 is a terrible movie, but I don't even remember.
2's the one with the thing in their heads, right? The little explosive.
That's 3. That's 3.
That's 3.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? I'm
2's
I'm
bad.
turned around.
2's bad. 1's
2's the one where they the motorcycles meet in midair.
Yeah, that's.
Okay, I don't remember who the bad guy was for that. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, see, then I don't remember about it.
And
the villains just aren't good, and it.
Yeah, you
kills
need a
me.
memorable villain. Otherwise, I think the movie isn't well balanced. Otherwise, it just becomes Tom Cruise and he wins again. Or
Yeah. But the movie itself was great. It had a good story to it, and it's a lot of fun. The action sequences, like we talked about, the opening plane scene that everybody knows about, the underwater scene, the motorcycle scene, they're all just phenomenal.
What do you think about the comparison between, or the Mission Impossible is America's James Bond?
I think that's a perfect description of it, and this movie more than anything made me feel that. This movie felt like a combination of Casino Royale and Skyfall to me.
Okay.
And
it had a little bit of the
My dream would
blanking
be
on the
for
end.
Daniel Craig, James Bond, and Ethan Hunt, and Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt to have like a crossover movie. Do you know how fantastic that would be? That would be so much fun.
Sounds orgasmic for some people.
That sounds
I don't know that it would be for me. Daniel Craig and Tom Cruise in the same movie though. That would be really fascinating because they're
Who do you think would win that fight?
Oh, Daniel Craig.
You think?
Yeah.
Although Tom Cruise is scrappy. He died in this movie and then rode a motorcycle through 200 miles an hour down the street. So.
Yeah, I don't know. They're so different. The two characters, Ethan Hunt and James Bond, at least as portrayed.
But I think it would be a fun movie to cross them over. That'll never happen, obviously, but that'd be awesome.
All right. Well, if it ever happens again, we'll do a special breaking news podcast episode. So, what do you give it, star-wise?
I don't remember what I gave it when I originally saw it, but after watching it again last night, probably even 4.
Yeah, I'd give it a solid 4. It's very rewatchable.
Maybe
the thing I liked best about
maybe
it,
4.25.
Other than the film itself, in terms of the experience of watching, I went and saw it with my mom. She's a huge geek for this kind of like. She was giddy as a child, and we had a blast watching it together. And that to me was as much that benefited the movie as much as anything in the film itself.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, what are we at? My number 2, I guess, because that was your number 2.
Correct.
My number 2, and I know it's going to be your number 1, is Mad Max. Which I can't believe you liked. I can't believe most people liked it as much as they did. I can't believe that movie got as good reviews.
You don't like it?
Oh, I loved it.
Oh, so what's your confused?
It wouldn't be a movie I would think that most people would enjoy.
You thought it was too much of a genre film?
It's a giant chase film. That's all it is. It's one long chase, and it's got
set in the post-apocalyptic
some weird stuff going on. I was shocked.
Let's not even mention like Charlize Theron having no accent whatsoever, and yet living on a continent where everyone speaks that way.
Yeah, but she was the best part of the film, probably. That movie focuses more on her than it does on Max, Tom Hardy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Is he the Max in this movie? I don't know if he has his name.
Tom Hardy is Max. Okay. Yeah.
What I loved the music for this movie more than anything. This movie, the reason why it was my number 1, it is a thrill ride. It is just that scene in the beginning where they're, or I guess it's not the beginning, when they're finally on the chase scene and you've got the guy hanging off with the guitar. Oh my gosh! It's like their battle cry.
The whole thing, and the stunts. A lot of the stunts were practical. I've seen behind the scenes stuff. When they're
the big rock
when they're swinging from the poles and picking people up and putting them back. Oh man, it's just fantastic. It's all real and it feels that way.
It reminded me of Waterworld in the sense that the aesthetic for the movie was really sharp. Like you never felt like everything felt like it was otherworldly, and yet it's very familiar. They're speaking English, for example. They just have this weird dialect and this the Australian accent, obviously. And the mythology that they built up around their character, I mean, it really felt like what the world could be like if...
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Give us 100, 200 years of declining civilization, 50 years with no water, we could totally be there.
Yeah.
Oh, and we're somewhere between the 1800s and today.
And the action is just... It's almost unbeatable. I mean, some of the scenes in this movie are...
Yeah. Tremendous. It was just a thrill ride. That's all I can say about it. Is every minute is
the only
awesome.
thing I saw with my dad when it came out, and the only thing we could say to each other after the movie was just wow. Neither of us we were both kind of unsure, not quite as unsure as I was about Ant-Man, but we were both kind of unsure about the movie. And I mean, we just had a blast.
This was one of a few movies in the recent past where I went into it with high expectations and they were met. Which is
Age of Ultron.
Well, yeah. when you watch a lot of movies like I do, or at least I used to, when your expectations are often high, and so it's hard to meet that all the time. You're
hoping Star Wars does. Huh? I said hoping Star Wars does.
Yeah, that's why I'm not watching any trailers for that movie. I don't want to be ruined. But the Gravity and Interstellar are the last 2 movies that met my expectations, and then I kind of thought, well, 2 in a row, 2 hits like that, maybe it'll be a while. And here comes Mad Max, man! It just blew me away. It was so much fun. That I love the the chrome thing that they
Yeah,
spray. They worship chrome
like
it's
mythology
holy water.
you were talking about earlier. Yeah,
they build that up really well. And the best line in that whole movie is, "What a day! What a glorious day!" Whatever he says.
It's definitely a fantastic movie.
What a lovely day!
I can't fault you for putting that as your number one movie of the summer.
Yeah, that is a movie that I could just sit back and watch sequel after sequel after sequel. As long as
I could sit here, we could play it 3 times in a row for the rest of the night, and I would watch.
The other thing that was really great about it is that it was they're in a desert and they still managed to make that really colorful, and vivid. The contrast of the sand versus
that sandstorm scene,
the bright blue sky. Oh man!
And that sandstorm scene was something else to say the least.
I loved the makeup, the white makeup on some of those characters, and the way everything was chunky and mechanical, and gritty. It just reminded me of like the Industrial Revolution kind of. Everything was huge, metal and rusted. And
it was an amazing movie
for sure.
But I had to give the number one to the movie that I saw 4 times.
Here we go.
In Jurassic World. Well, right. let me preface this a little bit, because I know deep down this is not a very good movie. It's not a very good movie at all. The dialogue's terrible. The story's not great. The villain is, nobody understands why he's even
and who's the villain really? Like, you almost have 2 or 3 villains at some point.
And
sometimes it's the dinosaur. Sometimes it's the other trainer. Sometimes it's the guy who's running the park. Yeah,
I guess that's who I'm saying the main villain was. But the guy who wanted to use the raptors, I mean, he was cartoonish at best and atrocious at worst.
Yeah, but, and his reasoning a lot of times, you just escaped why he felt the way he did.
But, like I stated earlier, I go to the movies over the summer to throw popcorn in my face and have a blast.
Yeah.
That's what I did with Jurassic World.
It's a dinosaur movie. How can you say no?
Loved it. And I know a lot of people had problems with it, and I know that it probably doesn't deserve to be number one over some of these other movies, but it was just amazing to me.
I would agree with most of that. There's some of the stuff. Well, we can get into it. The Chris Pratt's little conversation with the who's the lead actress? I'm blanking on her name. The one who was running the park. When they're back at, and she's the aunt.
It's Ron Howard's daughter. It's Bryce Dallas Howard.
Okay, yeah. When they're at her little cabin and Chris Pratt's talking to her. His dialogue, the whole thing where he's talking about sex, basically.
I thought it was funny.
But you compare that to Ian Malcolm telling Dr. Sadler,
I
refuse to believe you're unfamiliar with the concept of attraction.
Stop right here. We can't
make
comparisons.
You have to with the series.
I know, but nothing...
I mean, you're telling me you would not compare Phantom Menace to Empire?
Oh, I do all the time.
Of course you would. Of course you would. That is exactly the point.
It's not the point.
You're telling me I can't do that, and there you go doing it.
Yeah, well, we're talking about Jurassic Park right now. We're not talking about Star Wars, because
it's the same concept.
None of the Star Wars movies are as bad as the Star Wars prequels, or none of the Jurassic Park sequels are as bad as the Star Wars
anyway,
prequels.
The other thing that really bugged me was there are these weird, slow periods of time. For example, the scene where they go looking for the kids, and they decide to have this long pause in the middle of the field with the broken ball thing, and she sees the dinosaur die, and all of a sudden, like, she's worried about her nephews being slaughtered. Oh, by the way, I feel painful about this dinosaur dying, and suddenly they're alive to me. Like, I
didn't care. You want to know why? Because dinosaurs were fighting each other, and that's all I cared about that whole movie. And I know people seeing the trailers, and even some people after seeing the movies, didn't like the whole training of the raptors thing, but that first scene where the kid falls and I was so into that. I was on the edge of my seat that whole time.
I liked the concept that they were trying. I didn't like where they took it. I would have loved to see a lot more of that, and maybe a limited experience with using them.
Yeah, but I just
the
dinosaurs were fighting each other.
Well, as with all things, we had a glitch for the first time.
You could say that.
The card got full. That was one of those things that I need to check before we record.
But it's our first time.
It is our first time. So
we actually finished.
We did. We went another probably 15 minutes from what's there.
We'll keep it a little bit shorter. We're just going to briefly run through our honorable mentions, I think.
Yeah. So my honorable mentions were Minions and Inside Out.
Well, I guess we should go back and say that Jurassic World was a fun movie. It was a good fun
what's
movie.
our final words on Jurassic World?
Yeah, it was a fun movie. It was not the greatest movie, but I had a blast watching it. And for a summer movie, I think that earns it a spot on my at number one on my summer movies list. So
I think what ultimately can be said about that film is that, did it live up to the previous Jurassic Park? No. Is it rewatchable? Absolutely.
Will anything ever live up to the original Jurassic Park? No. No, it never will. No.
Probably never.
But yeah, so we just move on to our honorable mentions. You had Inside Out and Minions. Minions I never saw, but Inside Out, interestingly enough, I'm not a big animated movie person, but the more I think about it, the more it almost made it onto my list. It and Southpaw both were vying for number 5 spot on my list.
What I love most about Inside Out was that it took some complicated ideas and concepts and really broke them down in a way that's palatable for kids.
Definitely, especially if you have kids or babysit kids or something, and you can express to them through this movie. If you can say, okay, your anger's out, like bring joy into it or something like that. Like I think a valuable lesson can be learned in that, and easy to explain to kids in that way.
And it also what I didn't like. So the core memories in the movie that were that they're trying to get back into the machine or whatever. Or if I recall, they were all happy memories, weren't they?
As far as I remember, yeah.
So the trouble I had with that is I don't think that your core memories have to be happy. If you want to go with that.
That's true.
That metaphor. I think some really important events.
I know that from experience.
Yeah, really important events in your life are often not rosy and nice.
Oh yeah.
But they still define you as a person. That was the only thing I didn't like about it, because I think that's the wrong message to send to kids.
Would you say it's one of Pixar's better movies, you think?
I think it's better than Cars 2.
Well, that is saying literally nothing. Literally nothing.
I think it's up there, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely it's definitely up there for me as well.
There's sort of 2 tiers of Pixar movies beginning to form. There's sort of everything before Brave, I think, was the transition movie. Everything before Brave, I think,
we're
was
talking like Toy Story, Cars,
Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo. Those movies were really, really good and well thought out. The newer movies seem to be coming. They don't have that original feel of, like, the mythology I've heard about Pixar is that they sat down in a restaurant and wrote out 10 or 12 movie ideas on a napkin and talked about them, and those are the first group of Pixar movies that got made. And we're starting to see the newer ones, the ideas that weren't on that napkin start to happen, and I think that's the difference. You're also starting to see sequels, which
I think it took them
something other than
a little while, because those movies that you mentioned, I never saw Brave, but it didn't look that good. And,
I
everything
really like Brave.
Everything since then hasn't really hit. It seems like you said, there's a lot of sequels, but Inside Out seems like it's been one that a lot of people really enjoy.
Well, so the joke I heard was, with Pixar movies, what if bugs had feelings? What if toys had feelings? What if cars had feelings? What if fish had feelings? And now they did what if feelings have feelings? Yeah. So I thought that was a fun little comparison.
It was a good movie. I enjoyed it. But in terms of honorable mentions, I had San Andreas, which was the earthquake movie with a rock, which was...
I remembered what I had forgotten in the previous segment that didn't get recorded.
Okay, what was that? What were we discussing first for the listeners?
We'd been discussing that I had this long stall on what I had been recommended. That's a weird way to say that. I wanted to see San Andreas, and someone said, don't see it because it's just like, and I couldn't remember for the life of me what that movie was. The Battleship movie.
Battleship?
That's what they told me it was like, and I was
because that movie's just atrocious in every way. That
and so I was like, if it's going to be like that, I'm out.
No,
anyway,
nothing like that movie.
Okay. Visually, you said it was very good.
Visually, it's similar to 2012. Movie-wise, I think it's much better than 2012, but that's just because I like The Rock, or Dwayne Johnson, as you're intent on calling him. But, it was fun. It's not something that you need to see a bunch of times, but if you watch it once, especially if you find it on Netflix or something in a few months, you're not going to hate yourself for watching it.
I would totally watch it. I like visual effects. I like explosions, and especially big explosions.
I also had Terminator Genesis, which I personally enjoyed a lot more than most people did, because I could separate the two. I treated it more as a reboot and separated the two timelines, and thought of it as an alternate timeline, and didn't think that they were erasing everything that had happened in especially the first two movies that were really good. And so I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I had a lot of good callbacks, and I had a good time with it. It wasn't great, and I don't necessarily want to see any sequels. I mean, if they come out, I'm sure I'm see them, but I don't need one. I didn't need one after the second one, though. So I mean, that's kind of how that's going.
In the part that got cut off, you were talking about the CG, the CG with Arnold Schwarzenegger's earlier version.
Yeah, the older Arnold Schwarzenegger fighting a CG young. It was one of the best parts of the movie. To be honest, it was fun to watch. But there's definitely some fun parts in it. It gets very convoluted at times, but it's worth a watch, I would think. I mean, some people would tell you different, but I enjoyed it. My dad enjoyed it. So I mean,
what do you think of the actress that played Sarah Connor? Did she do a good job?
She's no Linda Hamilton from the original, or the second one in particular, but...
Man, your ability to recall names, man. You just fire that off like it was on the tip of your tongue.
I'm a walking IMDb with something.
This is good.
But yeah, she's not her, but she does a good job with the movie. She's fun to watch. She's attractive, to say the least, so that works.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, it's worth a watch, I would say. If you can just treat it as a reboot and kind of separate, but still calling back to the originals. I had a good time with it. And my last one was The Gift, which is kind of an underknown movie, I think. A lot of people hadn't seen it. I personally really enjoyed it. It was a really good, suspenseful thriller kind of movie. Jason Bateman usually does comedic roles, but he did great dramatic performance, and it's got a lot of twists that you don't see coming, and some of them kind of make you feel a little uneasy. It gets a little dark at times. Let's just say that.
So in the part that got cut off, I mentioned that I did not want to see that movie for a couple of reasons. One, I kind of had the feeling that it might be just one of those B kind of scary movies. I saw it as a horror movie.
No, it's not. I wouldn't say it's a horror movie at all. I mean, it's got those kind of elements to it at times, but it's definitely
more of a suspense thriller.
Definitely more of a thriller, yeah. Okay.
So I'm definitely on board with seeing it now. Yeah, especially Jason Bateman I like. I just had that feeling that this is one of those movies that I'm not going to like, and it's still going to make me creeped out about my neighbors, so maybe I should just not see it. I
liked it, and it did creep me out at times. I mean, the end, I won't spoil anything, but it's...
Good twists?
It leaves you... It doesn't exactly explain everything. It leaves it up to your imagination, I think, a little bit, and that is kind of the creepiest thing that you can do at times. It's like, it makes you feel a little uneasy. But it's a great movie. I recommend it to anybody if you can find it at a Redbox or whatever now. It's obviously not still in theaters anymore, but once it comes out, it's definitely worth a watch.
All right.
And yeah, that's all I had on my honorable mentions.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys. This is our first attempt.
So sorry for the
sorry for the glitch. We'll definitely be watching out for that in the future. So where can they contact you?
Well, first of all, we should talk about a little bit about what we're doing in the future, assuming this goes over well with listeners, and that's come for the month of October. We'll do each week. We'll kind of design a little template to do, and we'll do, I don't know, like classic horror movies one week and slasher movies one week, and we'll rewatch some of them, and we'll talk about those and kind of do a countdown to Halloween kind of thing. And then
there's a couple of Halloween movies that I know you haven't watched that are totally classic for me.
Yeah,
I think we need to do something of that nature.
We'll definitely rewatch the movies and watch them for the first time and that kind of thing, but
Halloween themed is the
Halloween themed for all of October, and then after that we'll kind of play it by ear. But yeah, so we're looking forward to that, and I hope you all enjoyed our first one, even with the little glitch.
If you want to contact me, I'm at Greg Crafted on Twitter, GregCrafted.
And I'm on Twitter with my blog at Jordan's Guide. You can find my blog at jordansmovieguide.com, and if you have any feedback you want to give us, it's a little longer than 140 characters or whatever it is on Twitter, then you can email us at jordansmovieguide@gmail.com. And I think that's all we got. So thanks for listening, guys.
Later.